So, next half an hour, we're going to talk about operational plans for startups. Take it away, Todd. Whoops, sorry.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. What we're going to do today is talk a little bit about operational plans for startups. We're going to talk a little bit about what an operational plan might be for a startup. But first, I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves. My name is Todd Morrill. I'm at University of California, Berkeley, where I run a program for the National Science Foundation in the United States, in which we train academics, essentially professors, how to start companies. I spend about half my time doing that, and the other half I work on corporate innovation in large global Fortune 1000 companies.
Hello, how are you? Good morning. My name is Angel. I'm a former university professor here in Madrid. A year ago, I joined Clarity, a startup that has been founded by Rebecca Minghella. Maybe some of you know her. We are working on a software as a service platform that provides information about social impact to professional investors of the companies where they invest, so they can take into account the social impact of the companies at the same time of the financial performance of the companies.
Good morning, I am Miguel Sanz. Now I am an investor. I work as an investment director in Encomenda. Previously, I have been an entrepreneur. I created 2 companies. I sold both. And previously, I have been auditor for 7 years.
And I'm Colette Ballou. I am an entrepreneur, an angel investor, and now a limited partner. Limited partners are the ones who invest in venture capital firms. The company I founded is my public relations firm, Ballou PR, which is a European technology PR firm with offices in Berlin, London, and Paris.
All right, so thank you all. So let's start off by talking a little bit about operating plans, because that's going to mean something slightly different to everybody, both here on the stage as well as in the audience. So give me some feel for, if somebody came to you and said, help me with my operating plan, what would they be talking about? Anhel?
So in our case, since I come from academia, even though I was a professor of business administration, when I prepare a little bit the talk about the operations, I focus a lot on how to prepare the operations, the things that people in the company has to do. Because I realize, and in our case, we have people from different backgrounds. We have researchers, we have tech people, we have business analysts, people coming from consultancy. And I realize how difficult it is to understand the different operations of the companies for each of the different backgrounds. So I try to focus on the things that the company or the people in the company has to do and how they understand these different approaches.
So sort of the projects and the activities of the people within the company, and
yeah.
Obviously as they look out at customers and the outside world.
That's it.
Okay,
yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Miguel.
For us, we see projects in early stage. So for the most important thing is the roadmap, the product roadmap. For us, it's very important to understand what they want to create, what they want to do, and if they have plan. Because if not, you always find new things to do, and you can be very disfocused on that part. And also, we always, or for me, I always review the financials, okay? Because the financials plan monthly is because you have to express in figures what you are planning. So it's very important for the cash, just to know what you want to develop, for how many people you need, which profiles you need. That's very important. Also the team, that if you are creating a SaaS, you need someone to, inside sales, outside sales, you have to define how you want to commercialize your product. And it's very important just to define your team, what you have to create, and understand how much will it cost. Because if not, you can run out of cash, and that's a big problem for startups.
Do you see that as a written document?
It's an Excel, of course, just to understand the figures, but with one slide from PowerPoint, just to understand the product roadmap, which usabilities you want to create or you want to come into your product, and just to define how you want to commercialize. And if you have good marketing in your team, you will achieve.
So you're saying written, but at a simple level, then your focus would be on the financial piece, the Excel portion of it.
No, it's but the financials explain what the people want to create, because we are investing in early stage, so many times we don't have too much metrics. So okay, we will achieve a CAC of 20 euros. Okay, but I don't have historical data. So we need to understand that they have in their brain, and they have thought about which people they need and what are the profiles to achieve these goals. You know?
And Angel, would yours be written as well, PowerPoint or a business plan or spreadsheets?
Yeah, in our case, we have both. I think we have the numbers and the figures, which are important, and they should be in Excel or something like that. But what we did is we prepare a parallel presentation with the high level of those operations. And in this sense of everybody needs to understand that, because we have experienced this quick growth of from 2-3 people in less than 6-7 months becoming 30 people. So even though you have this clear idea about where you want to go and this very specific and quantitative plan, things happen, you have to change it. And when you are 30 people, you need everybody to understand where you're going. Even though the plan is very well defined, they have to be part of that redefinition of the plan.
You need a plan to change it.
Yes.
Okay. So I take it you're not thinking of a large written document. So not a business plan, but a simple overview of what's going on, and then emphasis on the behaviors that need to occur and the buy-in from the team. Colette, anything to add to that?
I'm an investor, so I like to look more at kind of your 10-page plan of what you're going to build and how you're going to build it. So it's different from an operational plan. Remember, I'm the money behind the venture capitalists. So what I'm looking at is at the portfolio and just, I have a quick snapshot of what you're going to do, why you might be the right team to do it, and why this is going to succeed, and why this market is big. I think more in terms of business plans instead of operational, so I want to be very clear about that.
The 10 pages is an operational or a business plan?
No, it's really a business plan. It's more of a pitch deck, actually.
No?
Yeah, pitch
Just
deck.
understand what they are thinking
Yeah,
about.
what you'd be looking at to say, I'm
PowerPoint
investing
also,
or I'm not.
The first all is you see the PowerPoint, you understand what they want to do, and later, okay, let's see if you have planned that properly.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what you've seen in operating plans and what you would recommend for entrepreneurs or for small companies vis-a-vis their operating plan. Colette?
So the first thing I'm going to address is very specifically, as the owner of a PR firm, I often see in an operational plan, we're going to use public relations to go big, big, big. No, you're not. You are going to use that money to get salespeople to build your MVP. Do not start throwing money at a PR firm anytime soon. I swear to God, if there's a line on your financials for a PR firm, there is something seriously wrong at the early stages. Look at it, have a really good reason it needs to be in there, but I have never seen a super startup that needs to have PR at the very beginning, right? What you need is to be able to build your product and then have people help sell your product, and that's the most important thing. And I'll give you a quick example. One time when an entrepreneur, a founder was approaching my company, Baloo PR, and said, you know what? We're going to hire Baloo PR because we know that you're going to grow our sales. So we're going to take the budget we were going to use for salespeople and we're putting it into PR. And I said, no, you're not. What you're going to do is not hire my firm, which, yes, makes me a terrible salesperson, but I do tell the truth. Don't hire us. You're going to go and use that money for your sales force, and you're going to go and build out your budget. You're going to get sales in the door, and then you're going to be able to hire us, and we're going to take you to the next level. PR is not a magic bullet. It's not a silver bullet to solve what's happening in the problems in your company. Build and sell, then hire a PR firm.
So you would like to see them have sales, or at least salespeople?
Well, minimum viable product, obviously a viable product, and then have a sales organization, because PR doesn't replace sales. It comes in on top of it, and it's a classic mistake I see.
Okay, so PR is the frosting on the cake.
Yes,
but they have to bake the cake beforehand.
What he said. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so any advice, things you've seen on the operating plans that make you particularly excited or nervous?
Link with Colette, I think it's very important. As we are early ventures, we start investing before you. We need to understand the unique selling proposition. Okay, you have to define it properly, and you have to have it very clear, just to express why people is going to buy your product or your service instead of your competitors. And for that, it's very important. Later, I think you need is someone who can sell your MVP, your first service, your first product.
Anhel, anything in particular you've seen in operating plans that you find particularly useful or useless?
Well, in our case, when we have been developing our platform, we have realized how difficult it is to define this idea of minimum viable product, because if you want to offer really value to your potential customers, and in our case, the customers that we are focusing on are really professional investors that have a lot of information, that really manage very well the figures, so you have to propose something that really adds value to the different offerings that they have already in the market. So we try to say something like we are creating the maximum volume product, which is the best offer that they can get in the market. And it's very difficult to identify those features or those things that are going to make the difference. So even though you have this clear plan about we're going to build this to try to sell it, it's not that easy in the process, and you really have to understand. And that's why I think everybody needs to understand what is our goal, which is not really easy to define, because in the process you change your goals, you change your priorities, and everybody needs to really understand which are those, the ones that we have already in the table, so they can incorporate that in the operations at that point and trying to make that possible at that moment.
So does that imply that the operating plan is not written by one person, but is actually written by the group or the company as a whole?
This is the experience that we have, because as I was mentioning, when you become a little bit more people, even though you have this vision and you can say this is what we want to do, the people that are going to do it, it's not yourself only, it's the people that you are surrounded. And those are going to be even more important. The results of those people are going to be more impactful on the result than what you want to do, really, your vision. So they have to be part of that in order to really commit to do that process.
So if I understand correctly, you're saying that to be successful, to ultimately be more successful, you need to have buy-in from everybody in the ecosystem around the operating plan. And that's going to take a lot of hand-holding, because there'll be a lot of change as operations evolve and as the company changes.
Yeah.
Would you include people from outside the company, like investors, for example?
We have done that. I think it's interesting, but the problem is that there is a lot of information out there. And if you listen to everybody, you're not going to do anything, because you're going to understand and listen to many different things, even in many cases in different directions. So it's impossible to do that. So you have to pick the advices from outside, but internally you have to make this decision about, well, what are going to be our priorities? This is what we're going to do, and do it.
Okay, great, thank you. So Miguel, again, help me understand, are you, in the operating plan, you say you see it represented as figures, is that correct? That's an important component of it?
Yep.
For what you guys do. And is that spreadsheets? And how would you try to reconcile consensus building, which is what Angel is saying, with something that's executable and understandable at the financial side, or at least at the numbers side? Any thoughts on that? It may not be reconcilable, I understand that, I'm just curious. And so for all of you, look, there are going to be different opinions of what goes into an operating plan. Obviously, every company is going to have a slightly different form of an operating plan. So what we're trying to figure out is, what do people think really will help or hurt in terms of operating plan? So if there's a difference of opinion amongst the four of us, that's normal and reasonable.
Operations is all the company, so everybody is making operations. Is what Angel says, that you have to listen everybody, but you have to do it your own and with your team, because investors, one say black, the other say white. No? Okay, it's gray always. But you also have to listen for your customers, because they always are going to tell you what they need, what they really need. And what I always say, that in this part, when you are in contact with the client, everybody has to think that everybody in the company is important, because customers don't speak with directors, speak with the people who is talking to them. So everybody needs to have very clear which is your product, which is your value, and the client is the most important in all the company. It's the main. All the company must be focused on the client. From the operational part, I say financials. I think financial is not important. Okay, it's important, but just because it's the only way that you can land all your thoughts. And it's the way, because if you think, okay, I want to do that, yes, okay, but how much money you need to make this service to the clients? How much people you need? Which profiles you need? Which platform you need to construct and to express. And that's why I think financials are important, because it's the only way that you can land your thoughts and think how much money you need for that.
Okay, so if I may, let me try to synthesize that a little bit. So the financials, or the numbers anyway, are the embodiment of what you're going to do. They're very specific. So you can argue with them. You can say this should be a 6 or this should be a 7. The risk on words or PowerPoint slides or something like that is that you can interpret them however you want. And the beauty of the financials, or at least the numbers, is it's very specific. And it's very clear what's going to happen.
Yes, but it's also for KPIs. You need to understand what's the performance of your business. And most times, entrepreneurs, they don't focus on numbers. Okay, that's accountancy, and that's not important. Yes, it's not important, but the important thing is that you understand what is your funnel from when you take a lead, when how it converts into a client, how much clients is the revenue, what is your lifetime value. KPIs are the most important, just to understand your business and change and reorient.
Metrics for the business.
Yes, metrics.
It may be financials, it may not be financials, but it's metrics
but
for the business.
Are assumptions
Yeah,
that
understood.
you need to prove.
How many
and
new
you need to
customers
understand
or
if you
whatever
have some
happens to be.
deviation from your plan
Got it.
into
Okay.
and how you are implementing that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so we know that Colette hates PR. Isn't that what you said?
Yes, that's why I started a PR firm.
What do you like in an operating plan? What operating plan? What would you see in an operating plan that would make you say, "This is great"?
I like to see alignment. Frankly, I'm really keen to understand why the team members or the early founders are the ones to actually execute on this plan. You suddenly show me that we're working on a jewelry startup that's going to go direct to consumer, and nobody has experience selling things, working direct to consumer in jewelry. I'm going, why is this the team to do that, right? So I'm always looking to figure out why are these the people, these the founders, or even the next level, are these the employees to do that? So that's what I'm really keen on in an operational plan, and then seeing how they're going to do that. We're going to use our experience working with Tiffany and Company and Cartier and apply it here. That's what I'm super keen on.
Okay, so let's suppose, just for argument's sake, that there exists a startup which doesn't have all of the expertise it needs to execute on its operating plan. Let's pretend for a minute.
I'm following you.
What would you like to see in the operating plan? Even though you're not going to be happy here, maybe you can be happy here rather than unhappy here.
Two things. First of all, just experience direct to consumer. Maybe you don't know everything there is about jewelry making, but if you've really worked in a vertical that is somewhat similar, then I'm like, okay, yes, that experience can translate to this vertical. I see it, right? Secondarily, anything that you're missing, you can add your skills with an advisory board. Right? If you have advisory board members who have been directors at Cartier, that fills in some gaps that I'm really excited to see. So you can go two ways on that one.
Okay, so it would be an important component for you in an operating plan to match the skills of the team to the problem that they're trying to solve.
Yes.
And team can be defined not just as the founders or just as the core part of the company, but advisors and so on,
Yes,
if they need to bring that
exactly.
in. Okay, so important point. The operating plan has to show that you're capable of executing on what you're hoping to execute on. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thoughts or comments from Miguel or Angel on that?
No, it's okay for me. It's okay.
In our case, the way we try to do that, if you really want to innovate and you do it with people that are so connected to the reality of how things are going on right now, it's really difficult to find that fresh eyes in order to do something different. So that's great about the advisors. We use it, and we think it's really interesting because they give you not only the idea about how things are going on right now, but about what they think it's going to be in the future. So they give you some ideas about how things are changing, what are the trends and these things. But since we have these people from different backgrounds, we have researchers, we have tech people, we have business consultants, we try to mix these three different points of view in order to try to find something different. And I think that's great because you have the expertise, but at the same time you have people with different approaches that give you some brand new ideas about how to solve the problems differently. Yeah. And that's really interesting.
Okay, super. Okay, super.
I want to add something to that, and I think sometimes in the company people who has a very strong expertise in something, and you put someone collateral to him that they don't know about this issue, but they think a different way, and you can achieve some ideas very interesting because they don't have lines or red lines in how to think or how to execute. So sometimes it's very, very important to have these people with a lot of expertise, but people who have expertise in other areas that can create new ideas or new ways of doing things. Because it's just going out of your comfortable place.
So both specific experience as well as new eyes on the problem. Yeah. Make it a little bit easier to execute. Great. Okay. So you've just heard for the last 15 or 20 minutes what the panelists think about what should go into an operating plan and what shouldn't go into an operating plan. How many of you have an operating plan in the business you're in right now?
Anyone? One.
One. None of you have an operating plan? No? All right. Well, then I guess we can tell you anything. Okay, so now, no. All right, really, so none of you, are any of you in a startup?
Startups?
Okay.
How about thinking about a startup?
How do you know what you do tomorrow? So if you're in a startup, put your hand up, please. All right, I'm going to give you the microphone, so I'm warning you. You can hide if you want. Keep your hand up. You're in a startup? Are you willing to say something?
Or ask something?
How do you know what you're going to do tomorrow if you don't have an operating plan?
Currently, I'm working on the operating plan, and I'm defining my team. So I'm planning on doing that thing right now.
Okay, thank you. So you have an operating plan for your operating plan. That's what you're trying to do. Great. Okay, good. All right, does anyone have questions for the panel members? Question in the back.
I had a question for... hi, my name is Fred Labadie, and I'm thinking of starting a startup. That sounds weird. I had a question for you because the business model I'm looking at is direct to consumer. And your comment about PR not being the first thing you have to develop sales is fine when you have a distribution model where you're either distributing, let's say, what I'm thinking of doing is vitamins, okay, beauty supplements. So it's fine if you distribute them in pharmacies, that's true, you need your sales force. However, when you have a direct-to-consumer model where the influencers and education is so important, don't you think that PR should be at the beginning of your plan?
I'll answer that very concisely. I would urge you, if it's DTC, direct to consumer, I would urge you to look at maybe a social media or an Instagram influencer campaign to start, which you could argue is PR, but I'd call it influencer. Take a look at that and actually develop your own channel. Do it first. You need to do it first. So if you haven't bought the handle, for your Instagram, and you haven't even started doing some Instagramming around it, and a little social media, you should be doing that right now. The founder is the best PR in the beginning. Yes, in time, but you do it first, right? Because that way you're going to find early adopters, people who are excited about your product, who maybe it's only 10 people, but they're psyched, right? And they're going to retweet, or they're going to Instagram, and you can interact with them, and those are your evangelists. Go find them. They're real easy. They're right there. We all find each other. We use the right hashtags, etc. Do that first. Add PR later. PR is for the next 10,000 users, and when you kind of can't seed the people who are already passionate and just looking for your product. You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but we're at the very end of our time, so I'm going to ask the panelists just for one final short comment or thought about what you would recommend for those of you who are in a startup, or those of you who are thinking about a startup, or those of you who are formulating an operating plan for your operating plan. What's sort of the 30-second message you'd like to leave with them so that their operating plan will be most effective?
So in my case, would be involve all your team in the definition of the operations plan, because they are going to be the main characters of that one.
Great. Get people involved and keep them involved.
Just to be sure, is create a data-driven company.
Say again, I'm sorry.
A data-driven company. You have to measure everything.
Measure everything. Metrics are important.
Founders are the best PR in the beginning. Do not spend on PR. The founder should be doing it first. There comes a time for PR and to hire an agency. It's just not at the very beginning.
So founders, you need to go out there and start talking to people as soon as you can, and certainly as part of your operating plan. Okay, thank you very much. Let's thank the panelists for the time, and thank you all for attending.